So recently I received a book from a fan of whatever it is that I'm doing here. And because recent life circumstances have forced me to have a lot of time to read physical books, just not digital ones, I was able to read it, and now I am going to review it. For full disclosure, not only did I receive this review copy of the book for free, but I also got an assortment of American candy in the package.
I'm dying of I am contracting diabetes right now. They're all
Oh yeah, you're eating. Yeah, what are you eating?
Fruit gushers.
Oh my god, fruit gushers! You lucky son of a bitch! I haven't had fruit gushers in forever.
So what do you think about the tropical fruit gusher?
I have also actually literally never had fruit gushers in forever.
Yeah.
My teeth! Oh my god!
Yep. That's
what the fuck?
So yeah, I'm not really sure if that can count as a bribe, even. Black Box Protocol by Bethany Loy and Frog Jones is a science fantasy novella. That means it's quite short, just under 200 pages. And basically what I thought when I was reading it was, this is essentially a Shadowrun story. Not in the sense that it's derivative, but in the sense that it's like an urban science fiction cyberpunky story that just has magic and fantasy races in it. I thought this would probably work very well as a pen and paper RPG. It sometimes feels as though this would actually be a pen and paper RPG. And it turns out that that is exactly what it is. It's an official in-universe book for the Neverwhen RPG, which I didn't even know existed, but here we are. And in the relative terms of being a licensed book set in an RPG universe, Black Box Protocol is like fantastic, extremely high quality, great, phenomenal, one of the best that exists. Because let's be honest, most of those are trash, unfortunately, and this one isn't trash. However, I also don't think it's great. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, here is my spoiler-free recommendation. I would recommend this book to anyone who is a big fan of Shadowrun, which is like a lot of people on this channel. I would also recommend this book to fans of science fantasy in general, because let's be honest, like decent literature in that genre doesn't come by all that often, and also to any like standard general sci-fi fan that wants to switch up their palette. I would not recommend this book to anyone looking for a hard sci-fi experience. Black Box Protocol is about as far away as you can be within the sci-fi realm from being like hard sci-fi. And I also wouldn't recommend it to anyone looking for a mystery novel, because even though the main character is a private investigator and there are some mystery elements, it's really not a mystery novel. So, Black Box Protocol, spoilers ahead, mildly. I'm not gonna spoil the whole story. Basically what happens is a private investigator gets called by a rich dwarf industrialist to retrieve a MacGuffin that was stolen from him, but technically the MacGuffin isn't really a MacGuffin because it becomes actually relevant in what the thing is and what it does later in the book. And instead of being like a hard-boiled neo-noir, there were droplets of rain flowing down the window type private investigator, this guy is a software engineer and just completely a little whiny bitch, which is a great new way of doing the whole private investigator thing. It really switches it up because that's not usually what you expect to read. The problem that this carries is that the main character thus mainly doesn't really do much for most of the book. Like most of the actual crucial events that happen are done by the other characters that are traveling with him, and he's just kinda hanging out, watching, sometimes saying something and being spoken to. But that's not really much of a problem because all of the characters that travel with him are very active and they are very likable and you can engage with them quite a bit. There is a quite stupid and stupidly loyal dog human person who is just a really lovable chap. There's a thief who is a kind of dragon reptile person who turns out to be not as much of a dickhead as you would expect. And also there's a commando unit of dwarves with cool magical powers and a general high skill in badassery. And they all do what I can only describe as a Shadowrun together. A good one, by the way, and also the characters are like good guys. All of the characters feel very well developed. While reading the book, I got the impression that they all had their own complex internal worlds, which, let's be honest, that's not something that this particular genre of fiction, or speculative fiction in general, is known to have in abundance, so that's really a point where the book shines. The problem is that I didn't really see as much of those internal worlds as I would have liked. They don't have that much time to come out because the book is too short. I genuinely believe that most of the problems that Black Box Protocol has could have been solved by just making the book be longer and a little less dense, because it is very dense. Even the occasional breathers felt like stressful and quick. I never got the feeling that the characters really had an opportunity to step back and reflect on their situations. They just kind of did it anyway because the length of the book demanded character development. The team has a lot of potential friction points. The characters are not necessarily always super compatible with each other without like developing their own emotional language with which they can communicate. They have varying motivations and potentially varying agendas, so they shouldn't really trust each other as much as they do. But in the book, it's mostly, oh, we are enemies, oh, I guess we could work together, oh, we are now best friends. The relationships just felt a bit rushed with the plot, which didn't entirely not work, because I did end up caring about the characters. It's just that I found the characters caring about each other that much a bit unbelievable. Which, speaking of, the character that I actually liked the least was the thief character, Pennon. And I don't think actually that this is the author's fault necessarily. So in universe, he's a Hylathian, which is like a scaly lizard, dragon, dinosaur type person. Which, you know, there's nothing wrong with that, I would argue. However, with how mystically the race is set up and with how strange it appears and how strange it should appear, he's pretty damn normal. I really would have expected Hylathian psychology to be like somewhat alien in a way, maybe difficult to empathize with, maybe not entirely easy to understand even for outsiders at all. But he's just a human with scales and wings, and he doesn't even have the wings on screen in the book. The dog person seems like a dog person, and even with the dwarves I got the feeling that they had a slightly different inhuman way of thinking. This fucking completely different branch on the Tree of Life type dude was just some dude. And that really felt like a wasted opportunity to me, because it would have been a very interesting place to explore. Don't get me wrong, he's fine as a human character. If he had been a human, he would have been a perfectly good character. I just feel like the only reason he was Hylathian was because the plot needed his wings. Otherwise, the very tight and quick pacing of the book, even though I personally found it stressful, I can see a lot of people being really into that because it trims away a lot of the fat. There isn't a single slow scene in this entire book. Alas, the same cannot be said about the writing itself. I won't say it's bad writing, because it isn't. I'm just saying it could have used a good bit more editing. I am a fan of the unfashionable, somewhat purple, lavish descriptions type way of writing. I like that. However, this book does that too much, and it does that at the wrong times. I would estimate that about like 10 to 15% of the words in Black Box Protocol could have just been cut out, and it would have read a lot better. There's a lot of superfluous adjectives and like redundant information which bog down the otherwise absolutely functional action scenes very often in a way that sometimes I feel like the author wasn't trusting my intelligence as a reader. Which, I mean, to be fair, that is a very tight rope to walk, especially with like a not as common genre of speculative fiction. But given that I figured out the big twist at the end on like page 3, it felt kind of weird. But if you can get past the relative lack of polish, I definitely would recommend giving this book a go. It's quite short. I mean, look how thin this book is. it really is not a waste of your time. I think you can get something out of this. So yeah, that's my recommendation. Thank you very much for watching this video. Like, comment, subscribe, share this to your relevant communities, but do not spam them. Consider supporting me on Patreon or Subscribestar, maybe buying some of my merchandise or my short story collection. The day of reckoning is gonna come when somebody reviews this and finds out how shit it is. And in that spirit, read Black Box Protocol, maybe also follow the author on Twitter. She has a pretty cool Twitter account. I don't know about Frog Joe. I don't think he's the main author. I haven't actually asked that. And I'm not sure I care that much. And see you around, cunts.